Hello and welcome to Immune Boosting Syrups and Teas. I want to begin by having us explore what immune boosting might mean for us as individuals. In the broader scheme of things, immune boosting, well, the words mean to boost the immune system. And there's a lot of research out there in terms of behavioral things we can do to boost our immune system. Don't smoke, for example. But what I want us to consider from an herbal perspective is behaviorally in the sense of what we consume, both preventative and supportive. So there are things that we can consume before we even think we have a cold or a flu that will support our body in fighting those things. And then there are things we can consume if our body is needing to process something. They actually are one and the same thing oftentimes. So I'm going to discuss a few plants and a few offerings that you can consider in terms of syrups and teas to incorporate into your, whether it's a seasonal tea or syrup. That's actually what I personally do during cold and flu season, which is in the colder months. Especially winter. I have a whole host of teas that I create for myself, which is part of the Lunar Herbal Alchemy Guild offering, that is just the things that I do every day to keep myself vibrant and healthy. And so these syrups and teas, they have a lot of different ways of acting, but one of the simplest that we can consider is herbs that are antiviral and antimicrobial or antibacterial. So there are, if an herb is known to be antiviral, such as oregano, then we can consume it when we think we might have a tickle in our throat. And I love the tea aspect of this because it is very mild. By the time you get to making a tincture, you're doing something that is much more concentrated. Teas can be such sweet and wonderful ways. It's this kind of a similar thing of throwing herbs into a pot of soup, where we're decocting or we're steeping the tea to get the constituents out of the plants. And the simplest one to consider is something that is antiviral if we're looking to fight a cold or a flu virus. And syrups, I'm going to cover elderberry syrup because elderberry is known to protect our upper respiratory and our during cold and flu season, also to help fight off a virus once we have something. And so I'll show us how to make elderberry syrup first. We'll cut to that in a second, and then we'll get to a couple of my favorite personal tea offerings so that you have some food for thought. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, solstice is the height of summer. So we're a little bit far away from, quote unquote, cold and flu season, but it's just food for thought of how we can start to incorporate these wonderful healing plants into our day-to-day life and have an arsenal of medicines that are natural, that we know where they came from, that we can use to support and boost our immunity as we're going through the world. And the idea, I would like to offer is not that we live in a white box and that we don't ever expose ourselves to things in our world. The idea is that we are strong and healthy and vibrant and able to move around in a wise way, and our bodies can handle what it is that we encounter. Ideally, we are the change that we are seeking in terms of health and vibrance and well-being. So let's get to first the creation of elderberry syrup. Okay, so here we go to making elderberry syrup. The full recipe I have posted on the same page as the theme for this module, but the gist of what you're going to use is 2-to-1. So for every, say, 1 cup of elder, you're going to use 2 cups of water. I've got a half cup of elderberries dried on the right, so I've got double that, a cup of water on the left. And you can choose in the recipe, I put things that you can add. Ginger, honey. I mentioned that the shelf life of this stuff tends to be short. If you wanted to make it longer, you could also add a liquor like brandy. What I'm going to do today is just show you the quick and easy version It is 100 degrees out here today, so I'm just making a little bit of elderberry syrup as a demo for us. So we're actually gonna cook outside. I'm gonna move you right over here to, this is elderberries, half cup in 1 cup of water. And what I'm doing right here outside is I'm going to bring this concoction to a boil. And then once I get it to boil, I'm going to reduce the heat to simmer. And I'm going to set this guy to simmer for about 35 minutes. You'll want it to simmer 30 to 40 minutes. What you're doing is you're reducing the amount of liquid. This is what's going to help it get its syrupy status. So let me go ahead and take some time here and bring this to a boil for about 35 minutes, and I will come back with the next step. Okay, we're back. 35 minutes has passed. This wonderful elderberry syrup is coming along. If you look closely inside the pan, you can see it's actually lost about half its liquid. That's what we wanted. We wanted this to become less watery and more syrupy. What we're going to do next, I'm going to not video it, but you're going to let this steep. You're going to let this sit here for an hour. So if you're making tea, 1 hour, 60 minutes more or less. This will also help the liquid to cool. So let 1 hour pass, let the elderberries that have been boiling and decocted into here just continue to infuse their goodness into the water. All right, so it's been 1 hour, and here we have our beautiful elderberry syrup in progress. There's a couple more steps here. The next thing we're going to do is strain these berries and squeeze them out of the water. So there's a couple ways to do it. You could use something like cheesecloth. I tend to just not like to use anything I have to throw away. So what I do is use a funnel and a little sieve to catch everything, and then I can still squeeze it out there. So all I'm going to do here is take the berries, and hopefully with my phone I can multitask. There we go. And just get all these berries into, whoops, there's one, into this. So here we are with all the elderberries on top and the juice in the bottom, and all you're going to do is you're going to want to squeeze the berries. So somehow press it with your thumb, press it with your fingers. You can use a piece of cheesecloth. Squeeze the berries until there's pretty much no more juice that's going to come out. Okay, so these guys are all squeezed up, crushed up, and deposited down into this mason jar. So this is pretty much done for the basic version of what I like to do for elderberry syrup. There are a couple more things you can do. If you want to extend the shelf life, I've included a recipe where you can add brandy. You could add any other kind of alcohol. Brandy would be the traditional thing to add here for elderberry syrup. You could also, before the liquid gets too cold, if you were going to add honey, you would also add the honey now. The next thing you do, I'm going to skip both those steps. And regardless of whether you do or don't add honey and brandy, you're going to put this syrup, this juice, up into a sterilized mason jar, label it. I like to stick mine in the fridge so that it actually has a longer shelf life. And there we have it, elderberry syrup. Okay, so as I mentioned, depending on how you make elder syrup, the way I make it, actually, it has a shorter shelf life because I like to keep it something that I can consume very easily. So I typically I have tons of elderberries dried on hand, and then I will make it as I need it on a week-to-week basis or a month-to-month basis. Let's go ahead next and get to the teas. The teas that this is my personal offering of some of my favorite and simple, easy to consume teas for boosting our immune system. All right, so here we have my first tea offering. I have 3 herbs to share with you guys, and these are herbs that I happen to grow up here and I'm able to pull fresh from the property, but you can use less of them and just buy the herbs at the store if you feel so inspired. They are, rosemary is right here. Rosemary is wonderful properties for antibacterial, anti-cancer, it's liver protective, really great for supporting the immune system. This guy here is sage. Sage is antimicrobial, sage is antibacterial, antiseptic. Sage improves your memory, it lowers your glucose levels. It's just an excellent all-around herb, so I like to use sage. And then this guy right here, this is our powerhouse. This is oregano. Oregano is antiviral and antibacterial. And I have to tell you, boy, I started off experimenting with oregano essential oil with cold and flu, and it was way too strong. Oregano tea is lovely. So what we're going to do, oops, sorry about my finger right there. What we're going to do is I'm going to take these herbs and just gently toss them into this mason jar. And then I've got a bit of boiling water that I've prepared here. And so all I'm going to do is, this is just going to be a classic tea steep situation where I'm just going to let this guy steep for probably about 10 or 15 minutes or so, depending on why you're making it. It's summer, it's hot. I'm just going to enjoy and drink this. If you were going to try to make it more medicinal, you might double the amount of dosage of leaves, and I'll put the recipe up so you can see just general, and if you wanted to actually try to use it in a more medicinal way. And this tea, you know, it tastes a little herby, but it doesn't actually taste so bad. I happen to have really grown to like it, and hopefully if you get the chance, you can try it, and let me know how it goes. See if it works for you for just helping you feel happy and healthy and strong. All right, here we have my offering for immune boosting ginger tea. Ginger has super strong anti-inflammatory, antioxidant effects that really have been found to boost, in general, one's immune health. So supporting the immune system. It also, you know, is nice to, ginger is known to prevent nausea. It's a natural blood thinner and contains anti-inflammatory compounds, which are good for the body. So this is an all-around good tea. This is about the amount of ginger that I used to create this. It's actually more like a decoction than a tea. It's still 100 degrees out, so we're cooking on the deck. So you'll notice I have a bigger pot here. I'm using a lot more water. Let me show you. And I'm boiling it. So here's this ginger. It's at a slow, ooh, that's hot. It's in a slow simmer here. And I tend to make about, well, I'll give you the recipe. There's probably about 4 cups of water in there, and I slice up fresh ginger. So you'll see in that pot, you can kind of see through this smoke there, there's fresh slices of ginger that are in the water, and that water is golden yellow. This is going to be some pretty spicy tea. I tend to actually, when I'm in winter and I'm making this on the daily, I will go about 3 or 4 days and continue just adding fresh ginger, because this root, when you can get the fresh ginger, it has so much to offer. The first boil, the first decoction here is going to be a little bit spicy. This is excellent. We don't have time right now to go into making ginger beer and, you know, turning it into something that's even better for your GI. But for this tea, I love it. I love it room temperature. If you want it to be cooling, you can cool it off. I typically will add some honey or agave or some sort of a sweetener, and it really does fill the place of almost like a juice drink, and it's so good for the immune system. It's an energizing drink. You can kind of tell by the golden color that's in there. So this is something that I'm going to boil for simmer for about 15 minutes, just to really allow the ginger to lend itself to the water. And then I'm going to strain all the little ginger pieces out, and I'm going to put this up in the fridge right now because it's so warm and I like to drink things cool. But you could also, you know, you could let it go to room temperature, because I tend to make, if like I said, there's several cups of this in here. You know, this will last me for 3 or 4 days in the summertime, because I like to drink a cup a day, and it's quite energizing and immune supporting. So enjoy ginger tea, and thank you for joining me in this module of the Solstice gathering up here at Seeding Reciprocity.